1874, the podcast with Dan Bardell and Greg Evans.
Hello, welcome to 1874, the podcast. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by the Athletics' Jacob Tanswell this week to run through all things Aston Villa, as we always do. We will, of course, look back at Sunday's humbling at Selhurst Park, but we'll also discuss some other issues going into the summer as well. This show is sponsored by NordVPN, and you'll hear a little bit more about Nord later on in the show, but there's also more info in the description if you want to use Nord to help you out. Jacob, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. Yes. I've just slightly forgot about yesterday, to be honest with you. When you asked me to jump onto that, I thought we'd be doing something else other than a Palace review, and that just sums up, my memory of yesterday really, and how little I think about it and how much I want to forget it. But we'll try and go through it today, won't we?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're not going to unpick the game. It was a meaningless game. Essentially, Spurs going off after their 38th game to Australia is more important than that game was yesterday. I kind of wanted to address it and talk about it because I don't know whether you saw my Twitter yesterday. I was enjoying getting involved with some Villa fans who I just thought, in my opinion, were being completely OTT about the result. Listening to Unai Emery afterwards, he said, our season finished on Tuesday. And he's absolutely correct. Villa had 11-12 players missing. It wasn't Villa's first team. Unfortunately, whenever Robin Olsen's in goal, we usually ship 3, 4 or 5, and that happened again, which we'll come on to later on in the show. So there was just no expectation. It was just Villa just turning up, entering the pitch, but really not caring what the result was. And that's the first time in my life that Villa have lost a game. And I've not cared one bit, Jacob.
No, I think you're right. In a way, they were there, but they weren't really there. They had to come on, they had to feature, they had to play, but they didn't really do any of those things. I think Villa went through the motions. I thought at some points they did okay in the first, Unai Emery said first 35 minutes he thought Villa in the game. But at half time, I said Palace were dominant. A few people disagreed with me, and maybe I was watching a different game, but I just thought Palace looked sharper. They looked like they were on it, and it looked like a team that didn't want the season to end, where Villa very much wanted the season to end. They are home and home. It was job done. But at the same time, I can see why there might have been some alarm bells in some people's view, because there's a lot of players here that played yesterday that might not be there in the summer. And maybe it was just a good nudge and a reminder that if Villa want to progress, it might be worth losing a few along the way that featured yesterday.
Look, I would have liked Watkins to get to 20. I would have liked to cross the 70-point mark threshold as well, but those things didn't happen. The players are on the beach. There's nothing to play for. Whatever happened yesterday, we could have lost the game 100-0 yesterday. And it would not have mattered one bit. Look, I maybe 1% see that professional pride, things like that. But Villa were going up against a team who are riding the crest of a wave at the moment in Crystal Palace. Arguably one of the worst teams other than Manchester City or Arsenal that you could have been playing on the last day when your season's finished, because they've got phenomenal front three at the moment. Palace, I'd love to pick off a couple of players from Crystal Palace. I don't think we will, but in my wildest dreams, I'd love Elise or Eza to walk through the door of Bodymoor Heath in pre-season, but it's probably not going to happen. But Palace are buzzing at home at the moment. They're dispatching teams. They're playing lovely football. They're scoring goals. Glasner's come in and almost had an Emery-like effect on Crystal Palace, and they'll be buoyant going into the summer. But what happened yesterday? It doesn't change that we're going into the summer with all those things that I've just mentioned, and we're also going into the summer as a Champions League team. So people getting their knickers in a twist over yesterday, I just can't get my head around it at all, because the mission has been achieved, and it's been achieved a game early.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're completely right, because the mission has been achieved. But and I could understand the argument, I guess, if Villa had finished mid-table and they were looking at form based on January really, and if you look at the points total, it's been good. But if you want to get into those metrics, that underlying metrics, Villa are roughly performing around 30th or 14th since January 1st in terms of expected points.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and that's that shows that Villa have been overperforming in both boxes, or more so in the attacking box. At the same time, it shows there is a bit of a downward trend, and it could be alarming. Maybe we'll talk about this if Villa don't start the season well next year, and you think, okay, this is the warning signs have been there since January.
Yeah, but
the
I
fact
know
is, Villa
that
performed.
people are going to come back to me and attitude on the last day, and when we lose a game for the first time, people are going to say, "Oh, I told you, it's all down to the Crystal Palace game." But realistically, it's not.
Exactly, and if you, as I say, Villa, we can ignore those maybe worrying metrics for the time being, because Villa have done what they have to do. They've got fourth. They've had to contend with a huge amount of injuries, fixture pile up, and you think next year, with everyone back, re-energised, going to Europe because of the result of this season, that should change. So I can understand if this was an issue where Villa, weren't finishing in Europe and this was another bad result, but the job was already done. So yeah, completely right. I wouldn't read too much into it, but at the same time, I was there, at that 60th minute mark when I thought maybe the 9-0 record could be under stringed out.
Yeah, I mean, look, people tweeting me various nonsense yesterday through the game, and people getting upset when I quote tweet it. But if you're going to say something silly, then don't be surprised when you get a response to things that you're saying that are silly. In my opinion, if I say something silly, which has happened, I would expect to get stick about it. These things happen, but people are acting like it's the complete end of the world, and we go to rattle through that team from yesterday. And realistically, some of those players aren't going to be here next season. That group of players will never play together as an 11 again. I get there was a few first team players playing, but the ones that were, they've played around 50 games this season. They're completely out of gas, running on empty. Asking them then to wheel out a full intensity performance when their season is done, and with permission from the club, they've probably been out having a few sneaky bevies all week. It just isn't going to happen for Villa. 5-0. I expected us to get routed yesterday. I've got to be honest, especially when I saw that team.
Yeah, you're right. And the players that weren't there, you think of Tielemans, Martinez, Bailey. If this had somebody on the line, they would have played. They've been playing through the pain barrier for weeks now, especially Leon Bailey, who I think has been outstanding in his mentality. But in Villa dropping those guys and saying you can have a week off, and Emery replacing Martinez, for example, with his son on the bench, it's great for him, but it kind of maybe sets a tone in terms of how important Villa are treating it. And the senior players that were there, apart from you probably say Douglas Luiz, McGinn, Diaby, a lot of them are either coming towards the end at Villa or are quite expendable. In terms of Villa, it would have been the end of the world if Villa got rid of them. Clement Lenglet's obviously loan runs out. Diego Carlos is a high earner who Villa will look to move on. A similar decision will have to be made with Luca Dean, who I think has been really good, but at the same time, maybe there's not a long-term or a longevity there. So there's a few players who are quite senior, Robin Olsen too, who probably won't be there over the long term. So yeah, it was a mix and mash team, wasn't it? And towards the end, Villa were playing that 6-3-1 formation, which kind of summed up where they were.
Yeah, Contra and Watkins in the 11, obviously, as well as the three senior players that you mentioned there. The other thing that was getting labelled at me was, say this to the people that were at the ground that paid money to be there. The people I've spoken to, and from what I could hear, I don't think they cared. They literally paid their money to have a party. We've done. They understand that we have achieved what we needed to achieve. The game is completely academic.
It was quite funny because obviously Villa lost the game. Crystal Palace fans were celebrating. They had a fantastic end to the season, and where the press box is in the opposite corner to the Villa fans, and you probably got the worst view in the ground from the press box because they've got obviously low roof. You can only see half of the pitch. You can't really see upwards, and all I could see was the first 3 or 4 rows of the Villa away end, and they were all in fancy dress. They were jumping up and down, and I thought, which team has actually lost the game 5-0? It was a really nice atmosphere where everyone was happy. It was that end of season feeling, and the Villa fans did not stop singing when they went to that 3-4-0. It was really lovely to see. And as I was driving into the stadium, I saw a lot of Villa fans in Shrek masks and colourful, tutus and things like that. So it was a really good atmosphere, and I think Villa fans would have minded as much if it was any other week.
Yeah, maybe some incognito kind of nods to Wayne Rooney there. I'm not sure with the with the Shrek masks. Yeah. So look, the away fans had a party in the sun. They got the day out in London. They don't care. If they don't care, and I'm talking about the best bunch of people that you could ever hope to spend time with, the people that go away from home every single week. They've done the hard yards all season, been to all kinds of niche places in the world and in Europe to, follow their team. If they don't care, then, I don't care. Nobody else should care. Unai Emery doesn't care, which is the be all and end all for me. So look, just write it off. If you're going into your summer worrying about that, then geez, honestly, find something else to do. There is literally nothing to worry about here, nothing to see here at all. Off the back of it, though, we can talk about players that played that perhaps won't be there next season. Villa are going to have to do some clever movement in the transfer market. What was the word Unai Emery used to describe what we're going to be doing?
Intelligent.
Look, the likelihood is someone that maybe we're surprised to lose may have to go. The other thing is the players you've mentioned, like Luca Dean or Diego Carlos, high earners may have to go off the wage book. Realistically, just using Luca Dean and probably more so Carlos as an example, high wages for players that potentially aren't in Villa's best 11 when everyone's fit. That's probably a bit harsher on Luca Dean this season, in all honesty. But Villa tried to shift him 12 months ago and they didn't. The thing I've been thinking of here is if Villa want to shift players aren't necessarily going to want to go, because Luca Dean, using him as an example, Carlos, they're going to think, well, I've played a fair amount of games this season. I've helped Villa qualify for the Champions League. I fancy a bit of that. If I'm still here, they're not going to put me in a bomb squad. This isn't Paul Lambert times here. So it actually might be hard for Villa to shift those players, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're completely right, Dan, because these aren't players that are desperate to leave. They're desperate. The players are desperate to stay and be part of the project. And you're right. If you think there's going to be a lot of games next season, you see the injuries this year and how quickly things can turn around. Diego Carlos, on paper, maybe is the fourth best centre back at the club, and he's played a lot of games. So that shows. But also, the Saudi market isn't quite as open. They're not quite as willing to part with the money for those level of players really anymore. I think they've signed their marquee players and they're trying to grow from the ground up. So those players that are in the late 20s, early 30s, who are not big names compared to the Ronaldos of the world, I think there's going to be a less of a market for them. Considering last year, Qatari and Saudi clubs were in for Luca Dean and Philippe Coutinho. I think it'll be very difficult to sell. That's why you hope that there will be buyers, interested buyers, and the name of Aston Villa and how well they've done maybe attracts these clubs to the table a bit more. Even
like a Dendoncker, who I think we can say is probably surplus to requirements on not as high level of wages as the two players I've just spoken about, but relatively high wages, has gone to Napoli and had a stinking, honking loan spell. Probably would have been better off staying at Villa, and actually probably maybe would have arguably helped Villa a little bit as well if he had have stayed. It's not easy to shift players. Coutinho's going to be back in the summer. What on earth are we going to do with him? He's clearly not going to be of the level to play in Champions League, which sounds absolutely ridiculous to say given the level of player that he was. But it's probably a fact that he isn't going to be able to come back in and make an impact here. Villa could have a lot of players on their books. Archer coming back as well from this transfer deal with Sheffield United. Villa are going to have a lot of surplus players. There won't necessarily be a ton of interest in these players.
No, and that's why it's going to be so important that they get to work on selling these players, almost straight away. For example, there's interest from in Brazil for Philippe Coutinho now. For Vasco da Gama has been mentioned, and the quicker they can get those type of players out, the easier it will be to manage the budget, but also bring players in. Villa, with Champions League riches is fantastic and it helps to some extent, but they will have to sell to buy in some way. If Villa want to invest big, they'll have to sell somebody that for considerable worth as well. So these players are key. Cameron Archer is an issue that Villa didn't want. Them selling him last year kind of just kicked the can down the road. Get some money for him now. It won't be the 18.5 million initially, but we just need to get him off, ease the FFP for the immediate future, and then we'll worry about it next year. But that issue's come to light now. And then Donker, Chambers, these guys, you need to start thinking of where they're going to go, shift them out before players return for pre-season, and hope that Villa then have those targets lined up who they want to buy immediately. So when they've got the cash, or they've got the money, they can go and do it.
Are we paying more to get Archer back?
I just think it's not they won't be receiving the 18.5 million they were scheduled to do. It'll be around half that, and then that works out in a way. I guess Villa, you could say that Villa are paying some some of it back because they're not getting the 18 million. They'll get 9, for example. But yeah, it won't be the good money Villa thought they were getting last year.
But from a books perspective, then I guess that 18.5 million doesn't work with the books anymore. Can't cook the books.
No,
there.
but you think obviously you registered that as pure bookable profit spread
True.
out over the length of the contract last year. So it's all very clever how they've had to manoeuvre it, and that's why they've NSWE have hired this guy who's a finance director from a previous role, because they have to be that clever to manage the books this year. You see what's happened with other clubs that have been sanctioned. It's not a nice situation to be in.
No.
So that's what Villa are trying to do, and it's going to be very tight.
God, it's going to be an interesting summer, isn't it? Like, it's going to be interesting for you reporting on it. Just on another player who might go, sorry, we'll come on to that. I shouldn't have done that. I did a segue then, but I wasn't ready for it because I had something else to ask you still about players going. Chambers, for example. Your team, Southampton, back there against the Premier League, perhaps, do you think?
It would be lovely and romantic, wouldn't it? I think... given if they did get promoted and Russell Martin was in charge, I would have think they'd be inclined for him. I think in January there was interest in the Championship, so if you can get top 10 potentially playoff contender type side, then that would be it for him. But I think he's had a really good end to his time at Villa. Baths, he started yesterday, but that was more of a reward for his attitude, getting his head down. And you know what? Things not gone his way in recent years, but he's not one to kick up a fuss. He's never played in his favourite position. It's easy to forget about. At Southampton's academy, he was a right winger. So I knew he played right back. It's crazy how weird his positional career's gone. But yeah, good luck to him. But I think he'll probably have to take a drop down.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff around Jacob Ramsey today as well. Like, basically, what I saw said if Villa don't ease their financial burden and sell someone else, Ramsey may look to go. But I just can't see how that will be. Look at the pure profit thing. We're saying with Chelsea and Gallagher, who Villa have also been linked with, that it's the easiest way, and we've just spoke about it with Archer, to kind of make your books look better, is to get rid of a homegrown player. But if Villa were to have sold him 12 months ago, they'd get a far better fee than they would get now, because the guy hasn't played virtually the entirety of the season. And if I was at a buying club, you'd think he's got unbelievable talent. He's a brilliant Premier League player, potentially a really high-level Premier League talent. Those injuries over the last 12 months would deeply concern me. Villa just can't sell someone like him for, let's say, 30 million, because that doesn't make financial sense either.
No, you're right. And, when David Ornstein reported Newcastle's interest in Villa would be looking for around 50 million before June 30, the end of the financial year.
I'd want more than that.
Yeah, a lot of Villa fans, were surprised, or they were maybe in disbelief at our story. And, since then, nothing's really changed. I've always felt Jacob Ramsey was the type of player that would go because of his pure bookable profit. But at the same time, you're right. I think one of the reasons maybe why Villa thought to keep him last year, despite the interest that he's got in Bayern Munich admirers, etc., is they thought, okay, he's injured now, but he'll hit the ground running. Another season under Unai Emery, and we could get even more than that 50 million. It's just a shame for him and a shame for Villa that his season has been ravaged by injury, and teams who are interested in him might perhaps are more put off at buying him immediately, given his injury struggles, and maybe want to think, actually, we'll do a deal next year once he's fully fit and he's proven to us that he can do it over a season without getting injured again. So they're in a really difficult position, because if anyone comes in, I think they do very well to get anywhere near that 50 million right now. And really it would be no use for Villa to sell him. But given how pressing the PSR situation is, that's a decision they have to make.
Overall, Villa qualify for the Champions League, and I'm absolutely elated by this. Football's rubbish. PSR is rubbish. VAR is rubbish. Basically, if it's got the R at the end of it, it's a load of rubbish, and it's ruining football, isn't it?
All I'll say is that if anyone starts moaning at me for reporting on PSR, I completely agree with you. I don't want to write about it, but the situation is, this is an issue that just won't go away. So I get as bored as you guys writing about and talking about it, but it is an issue, and you're right. I think VAR, I would be absolutely delighted if clubs voted for that to go, but they won't. I don't think, and it's the same with PSR. Villa obviously are voting against certain regulations to tighten up finances. But it's just a shame that clubs that are broken into that top six, even like Newcastle, who've got loads of money but they can't spend it, can't then go in further. It kind of just keeps everything where it is, and no one can really establish themselves in that top six or whatever for a sustained period of time because of PSR.
Yeah, it's a real shame. I don't agree with the rules. I don't agree with the selling of homegrown players. It seems to be the only way clubs can get round certain things. I just think it's rubbish. And the football romantic in me that has loved seeing academy players come through at Villa Park. Jacob Ramsey is pure class when he's fit, and I want to see him playing for Villa in the Champions League. He's been part of the club's growth. Back end of last season when we finished 7th, really important future England player. I don't want to see that type of player leave when Villa don't really want to see it either. But you kind of put into this hole where you have to. And I will say as well, Greg got slated about maybe 10, 11 months ago now for saying all this stuff. Took a real pelting off the back of a podcast that me and him did on this show. And he didn't deserve it because everything he said was completely correct. And maybe we'll get a bit of a pasting for addressing it straight after we've qualified for the Champions League. But it's a pertinent topic, unfortunately, and we have to speak about it.
Yeah, and this is where he keeps talking about being intelligent because he knows he has to deal with this, but at the same time he's got to keep the squad together that is strong enough, but also stronger than last year to compete in even higher competitions this year. And I think you could say one saving grace is that Jacob Ramsey sadly does have to go. Villa have had a year without him anyway, so they all know how to adapt to him. Obviously, Emi Buendia, you would hope, will come back fit. He can be in that hole. Morgan Rogers, who is a very similar player in terms of his ball carrying, playing that left-sided 10 position, could step in and hopefully.
But I want both of them. We should be in that position. We should be able to have both of them and choose between them and have a fantastic squad. That's not fair. No,
it's you're completely right. And if Jacob Ramsey was going to go, you'd rather it be for a top huge club, after he's done fantastic at Villa, rather than a club that perhaps could be competing with Villa next year. In Europe or in the top 4 positions. That's the sad thing.
But surely Newcastle have got the same. Well, we know they've got the same kind of problems as Villa. Like them, it's very backwards. It's almost like I can't think of an example. Okay, let's say Lewis Miley. It's like Newcastle kind of saying to Villa, "Well, you buy Lewis Miley off us, and that'll be pure profit for us, and then we'll do the same for you." For Jacob Ramsey, it's almost like kind of. That kind of thing might start happening. We've seen rumours in recent weeks, and I don't know how true they are, that Villa go and buy Gallagher from Chelsea, and then Duran potentially goes to Chelsea, not in a part exchange, and obviously Duran's not homegrown, but Villa would make a little bit of profit on that. We're going to start seeing those kind of things happen, which is a little bit suspect in itself.
Yeah, well, it won't be because this is the best deal. It's because teams like Chelsea who've tried to put players on long contracts to navigate the rules, and Villa as well have to do things that just fit them, and that are generally straightforward, and they help to alleviate PSR. I think John Duran has made it pretty clear that he likes Chelsea, so that would be a deal.
Born and raised in the streets of London, John Duran, big Chelsea fan from what we hear.
So I'm sure he'd be up for that as well.
What did you make of him yesterday? Like, this is the thing with him, right? Come on against Liverpool and like an absolute world beater. And it's hard to judge him in 90 minutes against Palace because we weren't really there. But then he doesn't do anything against Crystal Palace.
I thought he started okay. I thought he showed a few flashes with Diaby down the right side, but it just looks a bit weird when Duran starts. I know he's only started a couple of games, but you've got to play Watkins off him, and I don't think they've got the same movement because Duran is not the best receiving on a half term. He's more of an old-fashioned striker that's either going to really run him behind or play with his back to goal. He's not going to drop in and drive for the ball. I think he's pretty. There's a lot of scope for improvement with him technically, but he's got all the attributes. He is an impact sub, and I think he'll be an impact sub for a few more years.
Wherever he goes, though.
Yeah, exactly. But I just think for him, he doesn't think that. So that's the issue. But whenever he starts, I'm always excited. It's just a shame. Every time he started, he's not really hit the ground.
He just looks upset all the time, John Duran. He looks upset, I think, when he's on the pitch. Doesn't ever look massively happy when he comes on. He looks happy when he scores, and he has got a collection of goal celebrations, like a kid pressing every single celebration combination on FIFA that you could press when he scored one of the goals. I think it must have been in Europe when he did that. But have we got any indication, kind of Villa are going to do buying wise? Have we got any inclination? I know you touched on it in the match preview, but probably not everyone watches the match preview. Some people might just listen to this show or watch this show. Got any inclination into how kind of active Villa will be? I've got my own thoughts, and I've spoken to people as well. But from what you're hearing, you got any inclination on positions, volume that we're looking for in terms of incomings?
I think in terms of volume, it'll be similar to last year, really. In terms of getting players that will strengthen the squad. Emery's not interested in players that are just going to be there to make up the numbers, or you think, oh, let's get us back up, left back, or whatever. He's there to improve the team. So yeah, exactly. So I think it won't be many signings, but centre midfield is key. I think that is one that is a priority. Winger as well. I think when you imagine Tyrone Mings is back, once he has those few little niggles after, as a result of coming back, and he's fully fit in, hopefully January, February time, and that's when he's at his peak again. You probably need to get a left winger in, because you'll have to play Powell, Tyrone Mings, Konsa, back three, and then you'll need someone that's really high and wide on that left hand side. And Moreno can do it when he's at his best, but I think Villa are looking at someone else to do that as well. So the wing position, centre midfield is key, and then you look at the full backs, and it depends on who leaves, who goes. Another right back as well. You could get a left back and right back this summer. So those positions, and if players go, then they'll have to adapt accordingly. But centre midfield is the big area for me.
Okay, so I'll tell you something that I've heard it from a couple of different places now, and it does make sense in a lot of ways. But then that also goes against the thing we've just said about people being starters and backup. So I'm not sure now that you've said that. Ndidi on a free is one that I've heard from fairly reliable sources, kind of as a more mobile Dendoncker replacement. But then you've just said to me, Emery won't sanction players that he doesn't think are better than what we already have. But because Kamara been out till October, there kind of is a need for that type of player. He's played with Tielemans before. He has shown that in the Premier League he can form part of a top 5 team in the past. Would that be one that you would expect or personally like?
Yeah, I think so. I think with Ndidi, although you probably say he's not in a Kamara or Douglas Luiz level, you probably still say he's a player that can come in and there won't be a difference in level. What I'm talking about is a player that's, like a Dendoncker type, where you think there is a big drop off between here. I think Luiz or Ndidi would be, perfectly fine. I think that's a really important one. When Emery talked about being intelligent, a Ross Barkley, for example, who will be not a lot of money, holding midfield.
Someone cropped up today, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's something in that. So someone that can get the ball from deep and really play out from the back. I think that's someone that's Emery would like to. So these players that, okay, if everyone's fully fit, they might be a second half sub, but they're still players that are improving the team in terms of pushing everyone up a level. And if Kamara is not doing it when he comes back, then indeed he can come in and there'll be no issue. So that's the type of competition that Emery wants. You see with Tielemans as well. He wasn't starting a lot of games last year, and he thought, okay, he might be a backup, and then all of a sudden he then steps in, and I can see Ndidi doing it as well. You see Ndidi next year. He's not a holding midfielder anymore. He's a box to box, operating in higher positions, forward running. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did come in, he would do the same transition that Tielemans has done.
Tielemans going on the back of one of my shirts next season.
You love him, don't you? Like every time I mention him.
I loved him before he came to Villa. I was absolutely delighted when we signed him. Then when he got off to a ropey start, I still thought he was a brilliant footballer. I was getting annoyed with people getting on his back because I didn't think it was fair. God, did he show his class in the second half of the season and towards the back end of the season. He's a pure, lovely footballer. My favourite type of footballer is, Modric, Kroos. Not saying Tielemans as good as them, but that type of midfield player I absolutely adore. I've always liked Tielemans, and he'll 100% be going on the back of my Adidas Villa shirt next season. And on the subject of Ross Barkley, I rashly got a Ross Barkley shirt after the 7-2 against Liverpool when Villa had him last time around. Oh, how they laughed! But if he comes back, I tell you what, that shirt will be up on the wall behind me. Yeah, I've still got all my shirts. I've got hundreds of Villa shirts that I've collected over the years. Do you think if Ross Barkley did come back? You just said you think there's something in it. He did cut out slightly, so just to confirm, Jacob did say he thinks there's something in the Ross Barkley link. Is he? Is he leaving Luton? Is he at the end of his contract? Or is there like an agreement that he can leave because they've been relegated on a free?
Yeah, exactly. Ross Barkley won't be playing in the Championship next year. I think he's one of those players that's come into Luton, similar to a Christian Eriksen. I know Brentford did go down where his stock was low when he came in. He's had a fantastic season, and all of a sudden he's now got these options at a higher level. And Luton, it makes sense for Luton because they obviously got Ross Barkley, player of his quality, for a year. He's done extremely well, albeit in a relegation season, and he can move on, and it works for both parties. I think it's always an agreement that if Luton got relegated, he'd be free or available to leave, and it wouldn't cost a lot of money either. So that's someone that's to keep an eye on. Obviously, you've got to sort out this wage and the structure of the deal, but he's a player that can come in, and if he comes in and then Donker leaves and Timo Robenham, who is also a player that is likely to leave, and who is profit as well. I know he came through West Brom, but that is I would say a good upgrade, and that's the type of thing that Emery would want.
Interesting, that, isn't it, Barkley? Because he's obviously a good player. He was obviously a good player when he was at Villa, but it didn't quite happen. But he'd be coming back to a Villa that's very different to the Villa that was when he was here last time. But he's also now kind of, after this season, a completely different type of player to what he was when he was at Villa previously, because he was playing as a number 10, basically signed because Jack Grealish wanted him at the time. Now he's coming there as he's been a deep lying midfielder and been Luton's player of the season. Actually, one of the players of the season generally in the Premier League, you would say.
Yeah, that's what's really exciting about it as well, because you wanted a Tielemans who could sometimes play from deep and thread in those number 10s, and Ross Barkley's that perfect type of player as well. So, if the Douglas Luiz is not playing very well, if he's still going to be there in the next couple of years, you can easily put Ross Barkley in that place because he is fantastic progressive pass. So he's also got that tenacity to him as well, playing in that Luton team. So I think he's become this really good all-round midfield. And Villa have got, when they're all fit, Villa have got enough number 10s. So I don't think that's the issue. It's more about those players that can thread it into the number 10s, play in between the lines, and especially against lower blocks next season, which Villa will come up against because of the respect they've gathered this year. I think he'll be a really, really good signing stylistically.
Madly as well, we never actually saw him play live as Villa fans because it was COVID year. So we didn't actually ever see him play at Villa Park. It'd be absolutely bizarre. It'd be bizarre if he came back. If you'd have said to me at the start of the season, just gone, in a year's time, you're going to be talking about Ross Barkley coming back to Villa, and you might be happy about it. I'd be like, I don't think that's ever going to happen. Two, I don't think I would be happy about it. But us having this conversation has kind of got it in my head that this is something we should do on a free. It reminds me a bit of when Villa signed Merson. He was like 30, 31. He'd just been playing in the Championship for Middlesbrough, and he's one of the best players I've ever seen play. For Villa, it reminds me a little bit of that.
It also, Barkley's proved his fitness over a year. Similar to what I was saying about Jacob Ramsey's. He's always been in and out. He's always had long spells out with injury, where Barkley's actually been there every week, really in competitive physical position. At Luton as basically their only creative force set in central rows of the pitch in that 3-5-2 shape, and he's been really, really good. So I think he's proven that he's durable enough now, he's experienced enough, and he's got pedigree in competition. He was playing in the 2014 World Cup, wasn't he? So it's not like, this guy's been around for a long time, and Emery wants winners. He wants guys that have played in European competition before. I think he would tick a lot of boxes, and I'd be extremely excited if Villa's interest accelerates.
Wow. Well, this is the Ross Barkley podcast on 1874. We'll hear more. We'll be back after hearing more about NordVPN. 1874 is proudly sponsored by NordVPN, so when you can't watch it, we want to help you. NordVPN is a secure and private service which works on pretty much any device, including your laptop, mobile, and television. So if you want to watch some live content, it allows you to appear like you're in another country. And whilst you're connected, no one else can find out what you're doing, including your internet service provider. Beyond this, the service also has threat protection baked in to protect you from intrusive website ads and malware, which is pretty handy for you. As part of NordVPN support performance for free, this also includes Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All you've got to do is go to 1874.io/NordVPN and sign up. All the details are also in the description. As always, we're very grateful to anyone that signs up. We know that money is tight, but if you think NordVPN will help you out, it will also help keep the channel running and help us too. So then, Jacob, I don't think there's much more that we can dissect. After, I mean, that conversation I didn't expect that we'd be having during the show, and I thank you for that. But obviously, as I've said, you'll be appearing on the channel more through the summer. The shows aren't going anywhere. We're going to keep producing content all through the summer. But after a season of, your first season covering Villa, you've wrote a lot of pieces. You've had a great reception. Even today, you've said it's been a pleasure on Twitter. Loads of lovely remarks from the Villa fans in response to you. What do you do now, though? What happens now?
Do you know what? My granddad, who's 92, asks me this every time I see him, and I have to give him the same answers. This is probably the busiest time for me in terms of not only transfers, of course, but there's actually a lot of stories that I've been working on for months that I've not really had the time because Villa have been playing so often, and I've had to do other and more immediate things. I can just get these pieces out, and I always find that the off season is the best time to really do these long, in-depth pieces, be it investigations, be it featured pieces, interviews. Saturday I was working, visiting a Somalian community that I've got for Villa players in the academy. These type of pieces that I think are more insightful than just match pieces or the pressing. They can go out during the off season, so I'll do that. Obviously the Euros is coming up, so anything to do with Ollie Watkins, hopefully as we concert any other Villa players, we'll be doing that as well. And there'll be a lot of bigger stuff that I've been working on tirelessly, travelling all around the country to do, and that'll be out this summer as well. So yeah, looking forward to it. And I haven't got any holidays booked yet, Dan, so I think I might have to.
I've got 3, so
sorry for some.
I haven't been on holiday since 2020, though. In my defence,
okay, all right.
I'm cramming it all in now. I am. Of course, we'll have kit reveal coming up soon. Villa have been posting Adidas stuff. Villa waited till the final whistle yesterday and posted something about Adidas absolutely immediately at the final whistle. The kits will be coming soon. One of the kits has kind of got a nod to a player that's playing at the club already, in my opinion, from what I've heard and seen. But it's always exciting when new kits come out, isn't it? And the Adidas deal is something that Villa fans are excited about, having Adidas making the kits.
Yeah, in terms of revenue, it's a respectable increase. Like I say, it's not the huge type of money that some of the things have been briefing, but it's
not believe everything that you hear people say. I would say
it's obviously a good increase, and it's obviously great to get Adidas, who are one of the world leading manufacturers, on board. And whatever the kit's going to be, I'll do my best to try and get one, because I was going to get the blue shirt this summer, but I've actually made the effort to get out, so I need to get one before they're out of stock. And then I'll probably get
cheap in Sports Direct, I believe, at the moment.
Are they?
£22 odd, I think.
I can't remember what retail park it was, but I went to the Castore shop and I tried to get the blue top, and it was still expensive there. So I thought I'd wait, I'll bide my time, and I'll capitalise the next few weeks on getting that blue one.
I obviously don't know what it's like. I obviously talk about other teams for broadcasters, but I can't imagine covering another team and buying. Would you wear it? I can't, because I know you're not a Villa fan. Would you? I can't.
Yeah, I wear. I would obviously. I don't think I'd wear it out to like a pub or.
It's a little bit illegal, Jacob. You're a Southampton fan. You can't be wearing Villa shirts.
No, but I think I just take one as like a memory. Like, oh, that's the
I get that.
Villa going into there. Yeah, I might wear it around the house, but I'm not gonna. Yeah, I'm not gonna parade. I'm not gonna start pretending like I'm sort of some sort of like Aston Villa supporter. When I'm not, but I'm still obviously extremely fond of the club. But I'm not gonna start changing my allegiances now, especially if. Hopefully, Southampton play them next year. I think that would be a really weird game.
Yeah, that will be weird for you.
I don't think, because even last year I didn't really support Southampton when they're actually playing. I was just so focused on work. Where I think I'd probably be similar now, where I'd be quite numb to whatever goes on in that game.
Yeah, if you get a Castore Villa shirt, if you get the player fit one, though, just beware. You'll be very soft. Wearing it, even around the house, because I've come across with that, just walking around the house wearing a Villa shirt, and then suddenly being like, why do I feel like I've run a marathon walking around the house? And it's because I've got the Castore shirt on. Do you know, have you got any idea? I don't know the answer to this. How soon the kits will come out?
I checked last week, and there was no date from certain people who would know if it was anytime soon. I do think it will be in the next few weeks, really. Just
because Villa are notoriously late for getting kits and shirts.
No, but I think
it takes forever.
This has been in the pipeline since last July, really. So I'd like to think they'll try and change the narrative straight away. I think they wanted to move into a new era as quick as they can, in the nicest possible way. Ditch Castor and BK8, who, they've still got a contract with, but they've had to break out of that, or they're trying to break out of that. So they're trying to get into this new era, really shape the narrative, and get into the Adidas era, really. And I think the quicker they can do it, I've seen the response on Twitter. Everyone's desperate to buy one without even seeing it yet. So I think the quicker they can get out, I think the more shirts they sell, and that would help the revenue because they've got to hit a certain target to unlock more money. So yeah, let's do it as quick as possible. Yeah,
really, really well. Intrigued to see the reaction from the Villa fans of the shirt. Obviously, the new, I wouldn't even describe it as a new crest, kind of the reinvented old crest is on the shirts as well. There's going to be some stuff around the crest going on, I believe, as well. So watch out for that. But yeah, that's what I mean. There's still going to be so much stuff to talk about during the summer. I'm a Champions League podcaster now. You're a Champions League correspondent.
That's what Emery said to us. Emery said to us Friday. Yeah.
There's plenty of stuff to be on. Let me tell you, I am looking forward to the Sky transfer shows in the summer and being around Flex. Previously Champions League Manchester United fan Flex, and all the Chelsea fans that work with me as well. And me being the one that will sit there, being the Champions League team. I'm going to very much enjoy that.
Dan, you're already getting some heat anyway. Now I saw your Premier League team of the season. You put John McGinn in. The bigger club supporter is not happy with you.
Well, right. So yeah, I work for Who Scored, posting their podcast once a week, and me, Jonathan Wilson, Sam Ty, and George Ellick, we all got asked to do our team of the season, and then there'll be a Who Scored team of the season based on average ratings as well. Look, whatever you do in these things, you're always going to get stick. And if you actually watch the podcast, I justified why I'd put John McGinn in over Martin Ødegaard, because there is a little bit of bias there. But I watch him every single week. I'm trying to be largely impartial, but I watch John McGinn every week, and he's been so consistent all season. And when he plays well for Villa, which is a lot, Villa win, and they're a better team. I look at those Man City and Arsenal games, and John McGinn playing against the two best teams in the country ran the show in both. Well, more so the Man City game, in my opinion. But I can't win because then I do something that is impartial, and I don't put Emi Martinez in goal, and then I get the Villa fans pelting me for not putting Emi Martinez in.
I've done. I don't know if I can say it yet, but I had to vote for my team of the season in the FW, but also the Athletic about 2 weeks ago, and I put 3 Villa players in. So I put Emi Martinez, John McGinn as well, and Ollie Watkins. So I completely agree, and I relate to you. So, but it just sums up that obviously a lot of other clubs who are perceived to be bigger don't watch Villa as much, and they don't appreciate Villa's players yet.
Yeah, I still had Declan Rice and the 2 Arsenal centre-backs in my team.
Yeah.
But Jonathan Wilson and Sam, they put 4 Arsenal players in, and we know that Arsenal fans run polls on Twitter. So my team's never going to be voted as the best because the Arsenal fans will just obliterate anything like that. That's what always happens. I only put 2 Villa players in, and I'm getting told I'm biased and I'm, not entitled to an opinion. I only put 2 Villa players in, the team that finished 4th. And it's hard to measure these things anyway, isn't it? Because, everyone's got different kind of things that they look at when they're creating those teams. Like I wanted to put Anthony Gordon in, but I felt I couldn't leave out Foden or Palmer, so I couldn't put Anthony Gordon in, but I wanted to put him in because I think he deserves to probably be in the team of the season. All these things are subjective anyway, but yeah, whatever I do, I can't win because I either get the Villa fans having a go at me for not putting Villa players in, or I get the opposition fans saying I'm biased for putting Villa players in, so I just cannot win at all in those things.
No, that's the issue. But if you're going to have an argument, just say that I've put 3 in and I'm not even a Villa fan. So Dan, you might be biased, but you've got a good reason to be.
Yeah, as I said, there will be content coming up all through the summer. I've also done something with Dan Rollinson that I'm hoping might be out by the end of the week. I'm very excited to see the reaction through. People probably got a good idea what it is by now. So in fact, I might as well just say it at this point. People will remember that 5 years ago I did a 1 year on poem walking round Wembley talking about Villa's journey to the playoffs, a year on from getting beat by Fulham. So this is kind of the next chapter looking over the next 5 years that followed. That won't be on this channel though. That will be on Claret and Blue, and also I'll be appearing at the Claret and Blue event. I have no idea what the date is, but it's the first week of June. I'll be appearing at that as well, Rollo's live event. So if you want to come to that, come. I'm sure it'll be a very good evening celebrating Villa qualifying for the Champions League. But yeah, I think that does us for this show, Jacob. Thank you for joining me today. And as I've said, of course, I've said it about 17 times now. I don't know why I feel the need to keep saying it. We'll be doing content in the summer in case you didn't know. And yeah, Jacob will be appearing on some of that content as well, especially as he's not going on holiday. That means he can come on and do stuff whenever I please, because he's not going away anywhere. So yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to go for a drink with me or wants to take me out for a pint, I'm in Birmingham the whole summer and I'll have lots of things to do. So that's my little plea for anyone that wants to have a go for a beer. Give me a shout.
I mean, I'll join for those beers. Absolutely, I will. So yeah, well, let's sort that out. Beers somewhere, just Villa fans going for beers and having a natter with Jacob and myself. Jacob owes me a few beers as well, I can confirm. So I'll definitely be looking to
mention it twice, Dan. Yeah, I will. Whenever you're free, mate.
Definitely looking to get that in over the summer. Since Jacob said that to me, he's not followed through just yet, but he has been mentioned a couple of times now. Just getting some breaking news, actually, Jacob, whilst as we come to the end of the podcast. But apparently, the Guardian are reporting that Aston Villa are closing in on a deal to re-sign Ross Barkley on a permanent basis. So I'm actually glad that we spent most of the podcast talking about Ross Barkley, because it actually seems like it may be happening.
Yeah, I've literally just been texting as you were talking there, Dan. Apologies.
I didn't say that.
It's a little secret. Yeah, I wish I had wrote something before I did this podcast, but yeah, it looks like that. And I think, as I echo everything I said, really regarding Ross Barkley, I think it'll tick a lot of boxes. It's a good deal to do. It's a quick deal to do, and yeah, hopefully he'll be the first one in the door sometime soon.
The bad news for Adam is that I need to now change the title of the podcast that I'd given him pre-podcast, and also you have to get this out a lot quicker than I would have made him get it out previously, because we've actually spent a lot of time talking about that. So yeah, I want to get that show out as soon as possible. So yeah, let's go then, Jacob, because you're now going to have to probably write something. I'm sure off the back of this as well. But yeah, I feel like I'm departing for the summer, but I'm not, because we're going to just continue. The only thing that's happened is the football season is finished now, but it doesn't actually mean anything for this podcast. So yeah, right, great. Thank you to everyone for watching and listening. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's show. I'm sure you've enjoyed the season coming to an end and Villa being in fourth as well. Finally hit me yesterday when I saw the league table on the last match of the day of the season, and I'd picked myself up off the floor from the Ian Wright tribute that was done for his time on match of the day. So yeah, plenty of content through the summer